Right, thank you, Peter. Yeah, so this will be a high-level talk on that, again, because we only have 5 minutes, but to give you an idea of some of the thinking behind ODIS. So the mission of this is to create something that's hard to break and also that can be extended across the decade. So it has to be quite simple, and it has to be something that will allow the components of the system, which you all represent. The system is the collection of components that exist, but we must make them work together a little bit more efficiently so that things can be pushed and pulled across this digital ecosystem. And that ecosystem metaphor is something that I think it's more than just wording. The thing will behave organically if we give it the right conditions to start up and evolve. So next slide, please. So the current thinking, of course, as we all know, typically hubs are created, large projects that pull a lot of data, very impressive, they have portals, etc., but it's very brittle. If something happens to that hub, a lot of the work that's invested evaporates, so vaporware, as they call it. And also, they rarely cover all cases that are needed by their participant nodes. So nodes start bilateral or trilateral exchanges that kind of start to diffuse away the energy of the system while the hub becomes a cumbersome entity. So we'd like to think about something more hubless, which would be the next slide. Right, so the hubless system, it's nothing new. This is what the web was intended to be. The web is our collective hub, but we need to be able to discover each other on the web, and things like ODIS CAT give us an index for our agents and machine agents to look through to discover what sources exist, and allow the nodes to be as independent as possible, leveraging linked open data technologies and other discoverability systems, if we can find out what the glue is. And that's what the ODIS architecture project, part of ODIS Arc, is focusing on. Something lightweight, probably schema.org implementation, that will allow the nodes to discover, in relation to the UN Decade and other oceanographic global missions, who has what are they doing with it, how do I access it, if I'm a machine or a human. This will allow people to spin up whatever solution they want or need rapidly, and also spin it down when they're done with it. But the data can be pushed to other repositories as needed. Right, so moving on. So that's the concept. So you'll hear this metaphor, but so I'm an ecologist by background, so I really believe that this can actually help us evolve the system. It's a digital ecosystem, high cyber diversity. We want lots of cyber diversity because we have no idea about what the things are that are going to emerge in the decade. We have some of the idea of some of the major challenges, but we need high diversity to account for things that are not on our radar yet. But we need some sort of underlying ecological rules, the sort of laws of the ecosystem, if you will. And that's where we're moving, that ODIS is this cyber diverse distributed infrastructure, and ODIS Arc is that digital ecology that we will facilitate through minimal lightweight interoperability standards, which can be extended into different use cases and different needs by the community. So again, this is something that we will nucleate and then open it up for people to push in extensions that can be understood by these systems using it. It's not entirely blue skies thinking at the moment. We are implementing and specifying some schema.org templates, but we'll see what the shape takes. The main idea then is that this ecology will allow people to have niches. In a way, it's a marketplace where you'll have different consumers, you'll have different producers of digital projects, consumers, people that consume and produce at the same time. And importantly, a lot of data that is at the current time wasted or evaporates can be reused, recycled. Often, at least in academia, for example, things are published and data is kept inside archives, sometimes digital, sometimes not. And that's a lot of public investment that is not reused effectively. So if we want to leverage science for sustainable development, and this applies to the private sector too, we need to enable those recyclers and recomposers of data. Right, moving on. So importantly, all the nodes in the system should be free to do what they want. Their interoperability is the keyword to improve testable partnership building that's practically meaningful. And this pushing and pulling of resources and data is what's going to enable innovation and reduce cost, importantly, reduce cost of buying into this system of systems so that you don't have to maintain any core central technology other than these lightweight specifications. And of course, it must be co-development. The nodes themselves should be able to co-develop ODIS and the architecture underneath it. I'd like to see that in the sense, and I think many would, that success is not so much about how many user hits did your service get, but more like how many nodes in the system were engaged at any given time to solve a problem. How multidisciplinary was that? Can we actually measure that? And of course, there must be multiple entry points. This can't be complicated. Somebody with a web page with useful information should be able to participate on the same level as a multinational data infrastructure. So that's some of the key principles we're thinking about. Ultimately, ODIS is going to nest within other systems that are emerging for the atmosphere, for various cities are developing it in the terrestrial space, to actually fuse these ecosystems into a digital biosphere and solve some of these global planetary challenges that the SDGs are capturing, and also prepare for whatever comes after the SDGs. It's not something that evaporates after that either. Next slide. Right, and then that's the segue over to Ocean Info Hub and to Lucy, which in a sense is an expression of what we can do with ODIS, an early test of this, which again, then Lucy will say more about, but thank you.